has just released its new operating system, and for those of you who have relatively newer devices, you'll be able to update the operating system on those devices. Now, as part of the update, what Apple wants to do is ensure that it'll be even more difficult for law enforcement to obtain data from your device. So whether it's an iPad or your phone, if you have a passcode, cops will find it very difficult to get that data if they don't have the passcode or the password necessary to open it, right? Now, let me give you some more details on this. According to the Washington Post, rather than comply with binding court orders, Apple has reworked its latest encryption in a way that prevents the company or anyone but the device's owner from gaining access to the vast troves of user data typically stored on smartphones or tablet computers. So understand that if a cop does have a warrant to go through your phone, the only person who can open that phone up with the passcode is you. Even if you go to Apple, they claim that they will be unable to do so. They won't be able to make the data available to anyone, even themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. The story raises a gazillion questions. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it says it won't be able to use, that no one can get it except you, except the, well, what if you, but can you tell them the password? Like, I mean, or do you literally have to be there? Does the phone know who's holding it? Like, what if you're in the room? You know?
Right. So the real issue is the only person who can access that data is the person who has the passcode. That's it, the password.
Right.
So if a cop has a warrant for that information, aren't you forced by law to give or hand over that information to the cop?
No, I think it would be, that would have to be, I'm not a lawyer, but that would have to be a separate issue. Like, they could get the warrant to look at the phone, but then they'd also have to get a warrant compelling you to hand it over. And a judge could say, by not handing it over, you're in contempt, and I presume he could lock you up until you handed it over. Or the cops could just do it the old-fashioned way and beat it out of you.
Yeah, that's probably what they're going to resort to, right? And also, there's this whole question about whether or not cops should be able to access that data. So first of all, if you have all of that information or that data stored on the cloud, well, that kind of changes things. In that sense, Apple would have to comply with the court order or with the warrant and hand over that information to the authorities. But in doing what they're doing with this new encrypted, operating system in the device, is if they want to look in your cell phone or in your tablet, it takes like the onus away from Apple and it kind of places it on you. So Apple can basically say, we're not complying with the authorities, right? Now it's up to you to decide whether or not you're going to hand this information over to cops.
I still think that's probably a victory for regular people. I think
so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. But if a cop has obtained a warrant, I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it sounds to me like some people are going to get locked up for failing to adhere to a judge's order. A cop cannot say, I have a warrant, you have to give me the thing. I mean, look, you may find yourself in a world of hurt where you could just give him the thing and he could hand it over, or he could be like, all right, I'm taking you in for failure to comply. You could challenge it, but in the meantime, you're in jail and you got to get a lawyer, and then the judge may ultimately compel you to hand over the password.
Right. I think that's probably how it's going to play out.
I can't see any other way. I mean, I don't see a search warrant being thwarted completely. Well, we got the search warrant, but I don't have Ben's password, so I guess we'll just stop investigating this case.
Yeah, they'll get their hands on it anyway. And also, what I found fascinating is that Apple is saying that it's going to be so foolproof that even employees that work for Apple are going to be unable to crack the code and open up your phone. But I think they're lying about that. I think that they're saying it, but in reality, if they wanted to, they could do so. But if you forget your own password or your own passcode,
oh my God,
yeah, you're screwed, because Apple is basically going to tell you, sorry, we have no way of accessing it, and as a result, we're just going to have to reset your phone. Any data that was stored on your phone but wasn't backed up in the cloud, you're not going to be able to bring back.
It just seems like it's going to
retrieve.
be a tremendous amount. Look, most people, the overwhelming majority of iPhone users, are not going to be investigated by the police. So it sounds like it's going to be a huge pain in the ass if your wife or boyfriend or friend can't get information off your phone that maybe you want them to get. Yeah. I guess you have to just get. I mean, is it? I just think the stories are weirded. They are worded oddly, because you could just give somebody the password and then this problem is solved. Like the phone doesn't actually know, so it's just password protected. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just really good password protection.
Exactly. That's what it is. And look, I think that what this really has to do with is the perception that people have of Apple. Of course, there was that whole celebrity nude leaked. People were questioning the security of Apple and the cloud. And now all of a sudden you have them pushing forward this measure that makes it seem as though they really genuinely care about your privacy, right? And so I think it's more of a PR stunt than anything else. But nonetheless, it's really interesting to hear them say that they value your privacy and that if you don't know if you forget your passcode, you're screwed. And if you don't want your authorities or the authorities to have access to this information, you don't necessarily have to give it to them until you're found in contempt of court, and then you're screwed.
Users who want to prevent all forms of police access to their information will have to adjust settings in a way that blocks data flowing to the iCloud, as you mentioned. They can still, it's just, I mean, what a terrible world all of a sudden we live in. I mean, a great world where you have access to all this information, but now you got to block the flow of information to the iCloud because you don't want the cops to get it. I mean, this story does make it seem like the cops are just going to be like, well, every day the police force in Los Angeles sends 37 officers out just to look through people's iPhones. You know,
That's true.
I pulled you over. What'd I do, officer? Nothing, but I'm going to need to see your iPhone.